Hi and welcome back to Classic Vinyl Top 10s, or welcome if you've not found us before. Today we're going to continue with my favourite albums, GOAT Top 40, and this video will count down 30 to 21. Okay, so greatest albums of all time in my opinion. Here we go. Most of these, this next 10, are from the 70s and 80s. In fact, there's only one album from this century. Not that I'm old, but anyway, here we go. ABC, Lexicon of Love, the debut album, produced fantastically by Trevor Horn, led by Martyn Fry, and I just remember the drummer on here. Who was this guy? David Palmer. No one ever talks about David Palmer, but his hi-hat work on this album, brilliant. Next, this could have been not any of his albums, but it was a hard one to choose, and I've probably chickened out a little and gone with the one that most people know. This is the fourth studio album by this guy. It was recorded in 8 days, had such luminaries as Danny Thompson playing on it, and this is Solid Air by John Martyn. So Danny Thompson was on double bass, Dave Mattox on drums. It is just a lovely, lovely album. Over the Hills on here, Don't Want to Know, Rather Be the Devil, May You Never, Man in the Station. I mean, fantastic. If you don't know John Martyn, this is not a bad place to start. Sadly no longer with us, and when you saw him live you were never quite sure which one was going to turn up. Was it the solo guy with the acoustic? Was it the guy absolutely out of his tree? Was it a band of amazing musicians and something really sophisticated, or are you going to get the gruff, semi-offensive Martyn? Anyway, I thought he was a genius. You don't have to like folk to like John Martyn. Okay. In at 28, very popular album, but don't often hear about it actually these days. It seems to have got surpassed by the more commercial MTV video stuff that they did, and Freddie becoming bigger and bigger. This is Night at the Opera, Queen's fourth studio album, and at the time I think this was the most expensive album ever to have produced, and it came with their famous, at the time, I don't know if you can see it down here somewhere, it says no synthesizers, which they were very proud of back in 1975. I think things changed, but there you go. Next, number 27. Okay, this is an easy pick. It's not so much for the album in my view anyway. A lot of people love the album, but to me it's those first 3 or 4 singles that were just amazing. And I remember you couldn't get them from the local record shop. You have to send off for them. Somebody like Adrian's Records or Rough Trade maybe, I can't remember, but Pistols, Nevermind, it's Anarchy, God Save the Queen, Pretty Vacant, What a Riff, and even Holidays I like. So those 4 singles, I was lucky enough to see them on the Reform, and yep, they were a bit more bloated, and it was a bit more comedic. I wish I'd been there at the time, but I wasn't for the early days, but that was still a fabulous night. And it was their debut, of course. Matlock left during the album, having written half of the decent stuff. Steve Jones played bass, not Sid. The title of the album led to quite a few infamous retail store bust-ups and display problems, and what was it, public order. Anyway, it was a time, wasn't it? 1977. Okay, this album that's coming up next is the only one from this century, 2002. Another debut album. It's haunting, it's tender. I think it's an absolutely gorgeous, quiet album, and apparently it's Ed Sheeran's main influence. I don't know how true that is. I'm not a big Sheeran fan, but there you go. This is Damien Rice. It had Volcano, Blower's Daughter, Cannonball, Eskimo. I mean, a fabulous album. Very creative. Saw him once in Birmingham, and a nice little show. Should get more credit. Haven't seen it on any of these lists before, so here you go. Okay, next at 25, one of the greatest new wave bands. It's The Jam, and All Mod Cons is what I chose. It's their third studio album. It pretty much broke them in the States. I think it led to 2 USA #1 singles, which was Shout and... No, I don't mean Shout. What do I mean? Yeah, ignore that. That's complete tosh. I'm reading from another line. So this is the third studio album. Yep. Pretty much Weller's Class Issues are all over it. Mr. Clean, English Rose, Bombing Wardour Street, and of course Down in the Tube Station. Brilliant. I still remember seeing In the City for the first time on Top of the Pops, and that was a breath of fresh air. Okay, so number 25, 1978. Okay, this is what I was reading about. You can probably guess now. From 1985, this was Tears for Fears. Again, could have chosen one or two of the other albums. This is the second studio album. It broke them in the States with 2 #1 singles, Shout and Everybody Rule the World. Glorious pop album. I love the quiet stuff as well. I Believe, Head Over Heels, as well as the pop sensibilities of Everybody Wants to Rule the World, the hammer drum sound of Shout, and where did it get to in the UK? Let's just have a quick look. Yeah, got to number 2 in the UK, this album, and number 1 in the USA. Chris Hughes produced. Manny Elias, I think, did much of the drumming on that. Always thought he was great. And if you've ever tried the timing on Everybody Wants to Rule the World, that's good fun. Songs from the Big Chair. Number 23, I've done a separate video about this. You may have heard of this. This is Television and Marquee Moon. 1977, their debut album. Like a lot of the ones on this list, I think debut albums are often the best. It's original. Eno produced some of their early demos, surprisingly, but Television rejected his stuff as too cold, apparently. And the complex title track was done in one take. Only got to 28 in the UK. Don't know what the US position was actually, but a fantastic album. Just creative, masterly, virtuoso in some places, Verlaine. Great album. Okay, at number 22. A very popular album at the time. This was from 1979. The album title means white reggae, so I'm sure you've guessed. It's these guys, The Police, Regatta de Blanc, Message in a Bottle, great pop song. Bring on the Night, I think, is masterly. Walking on the Moon, very creative, very different. The Bed's Too Big Without You. I mean, it's just, I think they were at the height of their powers. They'd done a superb debut album, and then this came along, and it was a soundtrack for teenage years for a lot of people, I think. Whether they topped it, I don't think so. But if you're a drummer fan, then Stuart Copeland, absolute genius. I think probably the best pop drummer we've had for decades. And then finally at 21 for this section on my top 40 GOAT, it's debut album again. She wanted to record something that apparently was real simple, and she ended up managing to sell 20 million plus copies. Debut album, like I say. I saw her accidentally supporting John Martyn in Bristol, and I was stupid enough not to pay her any attention at the time, probably because of who I was with, but it wasn't long after that she appeared at Wembley at the Mandela tribute, and this is Tracy Chapman. I think one of the best acoustic albums. If you sit this album next to Joni Mitchell's Blue or something like that, I think there is a comparison. I'm sure a lot of Joni fans would disagree, and obviously this is just the one album, whereas Joni went on to do quite a number of excellent albums, and then she moved into jazz for a while and all sorts of things anyway, but this, just beautiful. So that's it, until next time. So that's 30 down to 21. Apologies for that cock up halfway through, but I try to do these in one take, so you know it's live, it's real, this is what it is. If you like any of this stuff, kindly do all the usual, please press the buttons and the bells and the subscribes, and then you'll get to see the last couple, 20 down to 10, and then 10 down to number 1, and I think you'll be quite surprised by the top 10 greatest of all time that I've chosen. But anyway, by all means leave your comments below, I'm sure you will. Thanks ever so much. Until next time, cheers, bye.